religion, and she asked me to read the Gospel of John and then come back for one more visit to discuss what I had read. I read John's Gospel that night and the next night and the next. I found that Gospel to be true to my life experiences. I went back for the last visit and told her how much that Gospel had touched my life. I was hungry for more. She put me in touch with some Roman Catholic Benedictine nuns who lived in Tulsa in their own home. I would go to their house every morning, and we would read the Psalms, share some bread, sing. As time passed, I decided I wanted to become a nun. They looked at me like I was totally out of my mind. Sister Gabe said, "First, I want you to go back to your Episcopal Church and make peace with that part of your life." I did. I met my grandmother there Sunday after Sunday. And now it is 35 years later. I said, I want to say some things. I have 2 sons who are now 29 and 28. My oldest lives in Los Angeles, trying to break into the movie acting world. My other son, Jordan, lives here. He is single and lives alone. As I age, I realized I wanted to spend time with my sons in a new way, to be intentional about creating experiences with them that would be meaningful, memorable. And so at the time, as I was aging and realizing this, in 2019, I moved to Pensacola, Florida. I had some seminary friends who lived there, and I was there when their daughter was born in seminary, and I'm her godmother. And I had visited with them over the years, but in 2019, again, I felt some depression coming on in my life and thought I needed a change. And so I moved to I sold my house and moved to Pensacola. And so realizing that I wanted to spend some time with my children in a new way, I moved back to St. Louis in June of this year to hang out with my son, Jordan. And we've had at least 3 very memorable experiences. We saw Beyonce in Chicago, we saw Beyonce in St. Louis, and we saw Beyonce in Kansas City. So that was, those are memorable for both of us. It was the reading from Exodus this morning that drew my attention, especially in light of what is happening in our world right now. In the wilderness, the Israelites began the process of truly understanding that they could not control God or contain God in any image. For years in Egypt, they had seen gods worshipped who were visual and measurable. Now this God they were following into the wilderness was wild and unpredictable. In their uncertainty and anxiety that Moses was not coming down from that mountain, they grew tired of waiting those 40 days. So they reached for what was familiar and tried to make God more predictable. However, a predictable God is not what they got. Before Moses ever descended Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, the second of which reads, "You shall not make for yourself an idol," the Hebrews began to grow impatient. They badgered Aaron for a golden calf. They built an altar so they could bow down to their gods of gold. Idols lure us with powerful illusions and misplaced hopes. Idols make seductive promises. These false gods come in all sizes and shape. They promise much, but deliver little. We can idolize almost anything: career, race, gender, sex, wealth, age, and especially nation. Our personal gods are so petty and pathetic that they would be laughable if they weren't so insidious and corrosive. We know from the robust health of the advertising industry, which testifies to the power of our puny household gods. Personal idols are child's play compared to national idols. National idolatries are more global than personal, more public than private, and more institutional than individual. National idols wreak far more violence upon humanity than our household gods. And the most vicious of these is the war god. A gentleman, Mr. Mills, used a suggestive description when he spoke of a military metaphysic, by which he meant a way of construing every national aspiration or international problem in distinctly military terms. In the last 100 years, at least 200 million people, mainly civilians, have been sacrificed to the war gods. As the situation in Israel and Gaza continues to unfold, and the anxiety that each morning, I know when I wake up, I check the news to see if Israel's done their deed, and that requires quite a bit of anxiety. Many people far from the conflict, like us, are left exposed to countless images, stories and sounds of conflict via television and radio news reports, newspaper and digital stories, and of course social media. And this is taking a toll on all of us, including our children. The American Psychological Association released a statement this week warning that consuming violent and traumatic news can, in and of itself, negatively affect our mental health. Psychological science tells us that fear, anxiety, and traumatic stress have long-term effects on health and well-being. These impacts are also being felt by people around the world who have families and friends in the region, as well as those concerned about the effects of war everywhere. I live in a fourplex in the heart of an Orthodox Jewish community near Del Mar and Old Bonham. My neighbor upstairs is Jewish, born in Israel, bilingual, raised in the U.S. Her grandparents still live in Israel, as well as two of her brothers. Earlier in the week, I asked her how she was doing. Is her family safe? She said they are safe. However, both her brothers have been called as reservists. She is deeply worried for them. Also in my fourplex is a woman and her two teenage daughters who are from Saudi Arabia. She is here to study at WashU to get her master's in social work and then return back to Saudi. I asked her if her king could help the displaced Gaza Strip folks, because they have so much money, Saudi Arabia. She said he would only do what the other Arab nation leaders are doing. I said, but he has so much wealth he could make a difference. She said he would probably help with humanitarian aid. It seems we can make borders an idol as well. About 12 years ago, I was sitting outside an LGBT coffee house with a few friends. I heard a strange sound. It was powerful BBs being shot at those of us sitting outside. I heard them pop against the brick wall. I told my friends to get down as I realized what was happening. I was hit with the BBs on the side of my face where one went through my cheek and lodged into my mouth and tooth. I can still flinch when I hear any sound that sounds like BBs hitting a brick wall. I can't even imagine what the post-traumatic stress will do to all those fleeing bombs and missiles. Will they ever recover from the horror upon them? Probably not. As Christians, what can we do? What is our skin in the game in this war, besides praying for peace? I think the best I can do at the moment is to suspend judgment of right and wrong, of good and evil, and be there someplace in the middle, listening, not judging, which is the hardest thing to do. I know that I've been in conversations. I have a good friend who is Jewish, and I better not speak about the Palestinians to her, or it will hurt our friendship. I learned that. So what I can do is be present to her and listen to her and not judge her or try to say where I think good and evil is. And I think that's all we can do as Christians, is to leave judgment outside right now. Support those around us, because everyone is watching this horror and is in some kind of trauma and anxiety and stress. And so if we can keep ourselves together a little, we will be able to be there for others. Amen. Please stand as we affirm our